Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a beer, it's time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today, I wanted to talk about one of the new boss fights that was added to Path of Exile in the 3.13 Echoes of the Atlas expansion. Now, this is not a fight against new bosses, this is a fight against familiar old bosses, but in a new arena and all together at once. This is Maven's Invitation the Formed. Now, this is the fight where you need to face off against the Hydra, the Minotaur, the Phoenix, and the Chimera, all in one arena, in a pretty tight arena, and all of them at the same time. However, two of them will face you first, so you have a bit of a chance to burn down those two of them, and then the others are released on a timer or when you deal with the original ones. So, firstly, a quick recap. I'm going to assume that anyone watching this video is familiar with the fights against the Minotaur, the Chimera, the Hydra, and the Phoenix, and has a fair bit of experience killing those bosses. If you haven't killed each of these bosses at least 10 times each, then I would suggest that you hold off on attempting Maven's Invitation the Formed, because it is a genuinely difficult encounter. This is a big step up from a lot of the other bosses in the game. So, a quick recap though on what you need to watch out for. So, the Phoenix has that action where he sort of charges up for a little bit, looks like he's constipated, and then explodes in a devastating fire explosion. This is really easy to dodge because the arena of the Formed is considerably larger than the arena in which you fight the Phoenix. Otherwise, the Phoenix is the easiest of them to deal with, and that's saying something because the Chimera is also pretty easy to deal with. This one will not cause you too much trouble. Next up, we have the Hydra. I'm going to save the Hydra for last. The Hydra is by far the most dangerous of the various guardians that are encountered in the Maven's Invitation the Formed, but we'll come back to the Hydra later. The Chimera is pretty similar in a lot of ways to the Phoenix. Now, the Chimera does not have the sort of signature smoke cloud move that you'd be familiar with from the actual Pit of the Chimera map. Instead, it's just a single phase encounter. The most dangerous things that the Chimera does is firstly is to use that massive combo attack where he marks out an area on the ground and then sort of charges up an attack and then hits everyone inside that area multiple times. That's really deadly, but like the Phoenix's constipated charge up attack, it's also something that's pretty easy to dodge. And the other thing that the Chimera does though, and it's pretty dangerous in this encounter, is that the Chimera can charge you. You'll be familiar with his whirling blades type attack. The Chimera can do that and snipe you while your attention is focused on one of the more dangerous bosses. This is the biggest danger that the Chimera poses in this instance. Next up, we have the Minotaur. So the Minotaur has the burrow attack, which is essentially the Chimera, the same thing mechanically as the Chimera's whirling blades type attack, except that it is deadly. Whereas the Chimera's one you can survive, the Minotaur's one is generally going to kill you if you don't block it or dodge it or evade it, unless you're playing an extremely tanky build. So, the Minotaur has that ability. The Minotaur also has the overhead slam. The overhead slam doesn't do as much damage as the burrow and burst attack does, but it does do a considerable amount of damage, and it also leaves falling rocks on the arena. This is an arena hazard. Arena hazards are something to be a bit afraid of, because they can add up. The Minotaur uses that ability on a 35-second cooldown. Oh, sorry, no, on a 10-second cooldown, but with it lasting 35 seconds. So in the worst case scenario, you can get three sections of falling rocks from the Minotaur, plus an additional one from the Maven duplicating the Minotaur. So that can be pretty sketchy, but in general, this is not too bad. The Minotaur becomes much more dangerous if your map mods include increased AoE, and particularly I think it's the mod, the Overlords, or maybe it's the Titans, that is the one that increases all of the boss AoE by an enormous amount. These two mods can stack with each other for a total of 170% increased AoE and a bunch of hit points on the bosses as well, and that's pretty sketchy. Lastly, we have the Hydra. So, you'd be familiar with the Hydra's arena hazards if you've gotten this far in the video. If you just want to check the videos for the individual bosses, I do have guides for them all. Minotaur might be coming later because it's failed a few times when I've tried to record it. I've stuffed up the sound on it, or I've had horrendous bloopers and it's just failed quality assurance for me. So that may be coming soon, but I will have a guide for it, and I'll put links to all the individual ones below. But the Hydra has the arena hazards. Now, in the context of the formed invitation, the Hydra's arena hazards are still spawned. However, they spawn in sort of a corridor array. You'll see that when we're doing the fight, and they are really deadly. Additionally, the Hydra is one of those bosses that you want to stay close to when you're fighting normally. Normally, my strategy for the Hydra is to stay close to her and sidestep her big charge-up attacks. And when she does the forking shot, walk around behind her. That's my strategy for fighting the Hydra when she's by herself. However, it's very easy to get distracted by something like the Minotaur burrowing underground or by the Chimera doing a combo attack. And so for that reason, you're often forced to move some distance from the Hydra. And that's when the Hydra becomes really dangerous, because that forking attack can easily snipe you from off screen while your attention's on something else. So keep that in mind. The Hydra is public enemy number one in this instance. Although the Minotaur is probably the hardest of them when they're in their own maps, and the Hydra is possibly even the easiest, when you're fighting them all at once, the Hydra is the one you've got to be scared of. Lastly, let's just have a quick discussion of map mods. I suggest that while you're learning this, you either learn it scoured or with two relatively harmless mods. And as you see here, I have hexproof, which is important because there is a challenge to beat this invitation with hexproof during the current league. And also I have players accursed with elemental weakness. However, you may notice I'm using Atsuru's reflection, so I just do not care about the fact that I will have elemental weakness on me. So that essentially is just 29% bonus loot for nothing in this context, because I'm not inflicting curses and I'm not concerned about this curse. So you can easily roll this invitation using alteration orbs if that's your goal. So don't worry about making it rare until you've learnt the fight. Just roll it with alteration orbs until you get 2 easy mods on it at once, and then run it as is. Or alternately, just learn it while it's scoured. Once you feel extremely confident with the fight, then it's time to start alching it, or even alching it and vaaling it. When you vaal this invitation, you can get an 8 mod monstrosity. It can have over 100% item quantity, and that means that instead of getting 3 Maven splinters, as I will get from this encounter, you'll get 6. So, without further ado, let's go in and have a quick look at the arena layout. Now, the first thing I want to add is that when you go into the Maven's Crucible, a lot of players experience performance degradation when they walk in here. I'm one of them. Hey there, just a really quick update to say that this is going to be a warts and all run. There will be mistakes. Hopefully you can learn from them. Hopefully you can not repeat them when you're running this yourself. But I do think that they're instructive to leave in there, so I'm not going to re-record this and get a cleaner kill. I'm going to let you laugh at the 4 deaths that I take in here, and hopefully learn a little bit from them. For example, the death to the Phoenix explosion is a really good example of something that can easily get you killed in here. You underestimate the Phoenix because your attention is on the other ones. So you should always wait a little while and just walk around and see the entirety of the arena. This is something that I suggest doing while you're learning the fight. Additionally, we notice the Hydra is north, the Chimera is northwest, and then towards the south, that looks like it is the Minotaur, and that makes this one the Phoenix. So that gives us a sense as to what's where. Most importantly though, we know the Hydra is up here. Now at this point, you want to stay mobile. You'll notice that this is a huge arena. What you want to be doing is, broadly speaking, running in wide circles around the outside on most builds. When you get an opportunity to apply damage, you want to do so, and then only really go in and go hard on one of the monsters when you feel that you're in a great spot to do a lot of damage quite safely. Keep an eye on what the various other bosses are doing, and also don't worry if you get killed every now and again. I'm in softcore, I've just leveled, so I don't really care if I do have any deaths. However, you'll be able to see when you activate this, which ones of the bosses become active. So there'll be threads that come out. So we've got these two. We have the Chimera and we have the Minotaur. So I'm going to apply some damage. I can do damage at long range. Minotaur is burrowing there, so I'm just going to be very conscious of that. And I'm just getting a trade request. That's always the annoying thing. You notice that there's only 15 seconds until the rest of them come to join the party. The more damage you can do, the better. Ideally, you'll have some of them dead in that time, but it's no problem if you can't quite do that. You just want to get as much damage in as you can. There's a combo attack I derped on, and now we're going to see what happens when we've got them all out at once. Hydra is the most dangerous, so pay attention to what the Hydra is doing wherever possible, and just keep applying that damage from a distance. And keep moving so that the Hydra's shots tend to miss you. Additionally, there we go, we had our first death. That's going to happen. This fight can be really tricky, and I am really squishy. Now, after any deaths, and deaths will happen, especially as you're learning this fight, make sure that you bring up anything that you need to function, as I've lost one of my golems and have all my auras up. And then you're going to step back in, and you need to immediately move. This is the Hydra's arena hazards for you. You'll notice that they cover a largish area of the map, and they cause a lot of trouble in that area. You'll need to pay a lot of attention to them, and splat again. Had another death. This becomes a lot easier if your character is super tanky, which mine is not. I think you actually are better at learning these fights if you are not super tanky. You'll get a better experience because you'll learn the things that kill you. Flask starvation is a real difficulty in here because it's only really the Minotaur that is spawning ads, and the Minotaur may end up dying early. There's the Hydra doing something scary, so we're just going to keep an eye on her and keep moving away. And now it's back in with all of our auras up again. The key thing you're seeing here is what happens when you lose control of the arena because you're unable to kill monsters quickly. This isn't a total DPS race in the strictest sense of the terms, in that it is still possible to win the fight if you take a while to kill the first boss, but you can lose a lot of control of the arena. Hydra is starting to get a bit lower in health now, and there's the Minotaur doing a dive. The more that you're moving around, the more often that the monsters will miss you. And that's an important defensive layer of sorts. The Maven will also intervene in the fight in various ways. One of the ways that she does that is through the duplicate attack mechanic, and that's pretty sketchy. But the worst of them is undoubtedly the times that she inflicts a slow on your character. So she can do that from anywhere in the arena, and it can be really deadly when it happens at the wrong time. Again, we're just playing dodging. Here we have 3 arena hazards from the Minotaur, as well as the arena hazards from the Hydra, as well as all of the various bosses' attacks. I think at this point, the Hydra is nearly dead, and so killing the Hydra is now the highest priority, because, as I say, she is the most dangerous. One thing you'll find, if you come here later in a league, when your character is much stronger, you'll find that this fight is a lot easier than I'm experiencing here. That's because I'm not playing a build that's particularly on meta or super strong. It's good enough. It's good enough to do the encounter, but it is not good enough to dominate the encounter. And that actually is often a really good way to learn them, as long as you're okay with having a failure here or there. I'm not ashamed to admit that I 6-portal failed the first one of these that I attempted this league, and that was a scoured map. There we have the real Hydra and the Maven Hydra doing the same thing at once. Okay, so that's the Hydra's forking shot. You see the charge up attack that warns you that it's coming. And there I made a mistake because I was caught off screen, and that enabled the Phoenix to get me. The Phoenix has probably the least dangerous and the easiest of the abilities to dodge, but that doesn't mean that it's completely a free case. It's completely free to dodge. Anyways, we have 2 portals left. That should be enough. And if it's not, well, that's always fun too. If you do 6-portal fail this, you will lose all of your Maven witness that you've been working on. So you'll have to witness the fights again, which is a considerable loss. Now, I took a lot of damage there, and I was kept alive by a combination of flasks. It was both my instant life flask and my delayed life flask working together that kept me alive there. I would not have survived otherwise if I didn't have both of them active when I was taking all that damage. I also required my steel skin to survive that too. I believe the Hydra is actually dead at this point. So now that gives me a lot more room to maneuver around the arena. You hear twin terrors there. That can be really sketchy because that can mean that you're about to get attacked by the Phoenix's charge up or a number of other things that could be from a duplicate that you haven't noticed. that wasn't where you're expecting them to be. At this point, we're in cleanup phase. At this point, the fight is basically won, assuming no major mistakes, but it's not over until you've collected your loot. So here's the Minotaur going and burrowing. Again, that still is super deadly. You still have to dodge it. One other thing that happens as the fight gets longer is that the Maven starts to provide more and more defensive buffs to the bosses. This doesn't stack infinitely, but it does give them a lot of, not actual technical extra hit points, but effective hit points. Now, I am not sure where the Minotaur is. There he is. That's really scary because the Minotaur's burrow attack is so deadly when you're in the wrong spot. So there we go. In terms of loot, what can you expect from this? So, first and foremost, you will get yourself your. Oh, that was terrible, actually. First and foremost, you'll get yourself your 2 Uncharted Realms points. I already had these 2, but that's significant. You will normally get a lot more loot than you see on my loot filter here. However, you'll notice that you have a 25% chance to get the fragments from each of the Shaper Guardians. Believe it to be 25%. You seem to get, well, I actually got 4 Crescent Splinters. I was expecting 3. So you get 3 of them for doing this scoured. And then it seems that you get, that is increased by the quantity on the map. However, this map that I did not have 33% or more quantity, so I was expecting it to round down. Instead, it rounded up. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but I'll take the 4th one. That's a little bit of extra currency. Fragment of the Minotaur, as I said, is nice. You'll get Shaper Scarabs quite a bit in here, Orbs of Unmaking, and the various tradable Watchstones. In terms of other loot that drops, though, there will be more. Stuff that isn't coming up on a loot filter because it's quite late in the league and that it won't sell. But you'll get Shaper Bases, you'll also get, uniques, stuff like that that doesn't hold any real value late in the league. I usually also get maps from these as well. I didn't get any on this run. The key reason, though, that you do this is because Crescent Splinters are worth something significant, and additionally, killing the 4 Shaper Guardians will also unlock a fight against the Shaper, which is much harder with Maven Witness, but the Shaper fight has always been lucrative, and it continues to be now, especially with how valuable the Uber Elder entry fragments are. So, that's Maven's Invitation to the Formed. That was a really ugly run, and I actually quite like showcasing the ugly ones because they show you how dangerous the fight is and how much can go wrong during it. I prefer that to showing a smooth fight, and so that's why you're going to see this one rather than one of the, rather than the deathless one I did earlier in the league, which I didn't record. I think there's a lot more to be shown from it. But anyways, if you've got comments or questions, fire away. In terms of the relative difficulty of the Uncharted Realms invitations, Maven's Invitation, the Feared, is by far the hardest. Then, in my opinion, and this is my opinion only, Maven's Invitation, the Hidden, which is the 4-way Breachlord fight, is second. Third is Maven's Invitation, the Form, the Shaper one that you just saw. Fourth is the actual fight against the Maven herself. Fifth is the fight against the 4 Synthesis Guardians. So this is not the Cortex, this is the Altered Distant Memory, Augmented Distant Memory, and the like. And the easiest of them is the 4-way Elder Guardian fight, which is called Maven's Invitation, the Twisted. However, this is my opinion. Your opinion may definitely vary, and it will depend a lot on your character, how tanky you are, and how experienced you are at dodging various abilities. So for instance, Maven's Invitation, the Forgotten, is one that I find is reasonably easy because it's forgiving, but most players don't have much experience with the Synthesis bosses. The Synthesis maps are something like 6 times as rare as the Shaper maps in my experience, and so that means that you just don't have much practice with them. They have moves that you're not expecting, and that can always cause you to brick a set or 2 while you're learning the fight. Anyways, though, if you've got any comments or questions, fire away below. I will endeavour to get the individual Minotaur guide up soon. I do have one recorded that needs to run I need to run a QA pass on, but if that passes, then that should be uploaded pretty soon. Otherwise, though, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you have a good one, and may your runs of Maven's Invitation, the Formed, be smoother than the one that you just saw.